Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second Public Sector Group event of 2025. In just a second, I'm going to hand over to Scott to take us through the next hour, and I know that he has an hour's worth of materials, so I will just make this as quick as I can. Just quick housekeeping. If you would like to ask questions, if you could put them in the chat, please. We may not have time to deal with the questions during the session, but I will harvest the questions at the end and Scott will answer them after the session if we need to. And we are making a recording. It will be made available, but it usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks for the recording to become available. And the recording does only record the speaker and the presentation. It doesn't record any chat. So with that all said, without much ado, I'm now going to hand over to Scott, who is going to take us through the next hour. So the floor is yours, Scott.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for inviting me to speak. So first acknowledgement, I'm currently in London in the old Masonic Hall in one of their committee rooms, which is a sense of ironic that I'm broadcasting you from a very old institution talking about some very new stuff. It wasn't by design, it was pure fluke that this happened. But you know when you spot something and you go, oh, that's a nice little metaphor, idiom, whatever word you want to use. I thought I'd not acknowledge that. So, but if it sounds a little bit echoey, that's why. So thank you for joining us for this next hour, talking about what effect is AI and machine learning having on our world of information and records management and a wider bit of information governance. For those of you who don't know, my name's Scott Sammons. I'm with my Act Now training hat on because I'm one of their trainers and consultants, and I've been with them for about 5-6 years now. I've been working in our industry for about 17-18 years now. I also do a lot of training with that now in various other places. I also am a teacher for the Level 4 Data Protection IG apprenticeship program. And for those of you that are aware, Act Now Training has been one of the longest going since 2002 IG and data protection training providers. We were around since before GDPR made us sexy. A little disclaimer before we get going. For those of you that have heard me before, you probably would know and would have recognised I'm a little bit of an AI cynic, a little bit. I do see the benefit of it, definitely. And in part of my pulling this presentation together, I have found some other benefits and some other bits and pieces. But I am inherently a man of doubt, is probably my bias that I bring to this. But I do, however, see the benefit of it, very much so. So what we're going to go through is a little bit of what's been going on, so some developments, what's happened, a little bit of AI in the news. We'll also look at some of the legal developments, because you might have seen a certain bill got passed recently that's going to have some impacts on this as well. And then we'll have a look at, okay, well, what impact is it indeed having on us, our practice, but also what effect is it having on us as professionals? And I've got some career advice for you if you choose to take it. But starting with that profound question, what impact is AI having on information and records management and information governance? To put it bluntly, the answer is massive. Because unless you've been hiding under a rock, you probably would have seen that everything is about AI at the moment. AI this, AI that, AI the other. There's definitely a lot going on. So it's having quite a profound effect on what we look at, the issues that are cropping up, what our business areas want to do. The effect is huge. And that's it. There you go, done. What is the effect that AI is having on information records management? The answer is huge. There you go, Elizabeth. I said I had an hour, but actually that took 5 minutes. Not quite. It is a little bit more complex than that. But I did contemplate going, well, that was an easy question, wasn't it? Right, okay, what else can we talk about? It is having a massive impact one way or another. So we're going to have a look at some of those impacts and where it might be going next. As Elizabeth said, questions, comments, do throw them into the mix. If we can answer them, we will. Comments definitely appreciated. There are currently 157 of you, so we'll get as to as many as we can, but appreciating that there are 157 of you, so might need some AI's help. So let's start with some AI news stories and developments. We've seen already some really interesting announcements on government use of AI. So the Labour government announced shortly after getting into power that it wanted to push AI-based technologies throughout various aspects of government, what they called the growth zones. We've already seen some examples of that backtracking a little bit because it went a little bit too fast, so now we're backtracking. And does any of you, for those of you that remember or were around when we implemented 365, for those of you that use 365 and SharePoint, does this sound a little familiar to you? Or we want to go cloud, we want to go digital, the preference should be digital first or cloud first. Oh, there you go, there's SharePoint for everyone. Oh, no, that didn't work because we didn't think about it. Let's backtrack and do it again. It's almost like we've been here before, and this story's playing out again. So replace the word AI-based tools with the word cloud-based tools, or SharePoint-based tools, or just 365-based tools, and we've been here before. And if you remember, 365 had quite a big impact on our industry for various different reasons. AI is kind of no real different in that regard. It's having an effect. It's going to be around for a while. It's going to adjust the course of our industry. There's no two ways about it. So there's loads of examples of what's going on in government, including what's going on in health. And some of this I've even seen for myself. So a close friend was diagnosed with prostate cancer a couple of years ago, and they had their prostate removed. And as part of the procedure, they had an AI-assisted procedure, a mixture of robotics, a 4D model of the area to assist the robotic surgery. And it was fascinating what they'd done. It was really clever, really, really good. And it then meant that the risk of nerve damage down there was, rather than being, I think the average is something like 51, no, sorry, about 30, 40% of nerve damage for normal human-led operations of this particular type. Whereas with this 4D generated model and with the assistance of robotics based on that model, it brought the risk of nerve damage down to something less than 9%. Amazing. I've been involved in a few projects reviewing some apps that help with the existence of diagnosis. So, for example, there's a particular app that helps doctors and GPs monitor wounds healing and infections being dealt with and this sort of thing. So it advises them and says, oh, there's a sign of infection there by sending a photo in or that sort of thing. Really clever, really quite useful, speeding up access to medical care. Yeah, definitely. There's lots of examples of it. We're seeing examples of schools using AI for things like SEN reports, submitting or writing and reviewing ECHPs. Elizabeth and I were just having a chat about applying for certain cases using AI to assist with that sort of thing. There's loads of examples of speeding up the process, making the process a little fairer, potentially. It's also being used in policing. So there's been a couple of news stories where police force has been using AI to assist in catching and identifying stalkerish behaviour, patterns, trends that an officer might normally miss, but actually has revealed a pattern of behaviour that is a concern or a potential concern to an individual. I'm going to come back to the data protection and ethics side of this in a minute, but for the minute, shiny, shiny, ooh, is that a good idea? We're also seeing it in the railways. So you might have seen they've been using it for programming and timetabling. You also might have seen a big argument at the moment that's been going on in ScotRail about this, the original recorder of the ScotRail announcements. Apparently they've now used her voice or an AI copy of her voice to create more without her permission. That's one of the reasons why the Data Use and Access Bill was delayed so much, because of some of the copyright issues. That's proving to be quite interesting. If you use WhatsApp, have you noticed a little blue logo that's appeared in your WhatsApp account, device, app? That's the word I'm looking for. You as a private user have no choice. It's there. It's doing all sorts of assistance, or can assist you with all sorts of different things to help you out. Very useful. I've been playing around with it. It's very useful, but it's also quite creepy. You also might have seen, in terms of news stories, one of our first FOI interactions with AI. Because while everyone's been busily talking about the data protection and the copyright issues with AI, actually, for those of us that work in the public sector, you also got the FOI interactions with AI-based tools. So in this particular instance, a government minister was asked under FOI for all of their ChatGPT prompts that have been used. And if you think about it, it's data that's being used for a government purpose. It's supporting government activities. It's being done by a minister. It's digital data, so it's written, recorded. It's perfectly FOIable. Now, I think most of you will come from public organisations in one form or another, but ask yourself that question. If someone was to put in right now an FOI request to your organisation for a key member of staff's, directors, ITs, use of ChatGPT and the prompts and the specific things they've been asking, is that easy to extract? Is it easy to find? Is it easy to retrieve? Do you even store it? Is it also something that could cause perhaps even more embarrassment? Like in this example, some of the questions the minister was asking was okay, are you asking that as a joke, or have you asked that seriously because you don't really understand what it is you're meant to be doing? So while one first bit of news or one first bit of impact on our industry would be, this is going to affect FOI. So while, yeah, the data protection, the copyright, the data quality stuff, the data governance stuff, which we're going to look at, is all important stuff, really is. Don't forget your FOI challenges as well, because they will be a challenge, and it does pose some records management challenges. Specifically, if in this instance, so the minister asking questions of ChatGPT and prompts of ChatGPT, is it a record? I would argue, yes, it is. Does it have value? Does it have a particular business purpose? Does it relate to potentially a decision that the minister is going to take, or an action that the minister is going to do? Does the advice influence the minister or one of your directors or an IT member of staff? Does it influence your organisation as a public body? Yes, it does. Does it meet the common understanding of definition of what would be something that we want to capture as a record? Yes, it would. But can it be captured as such? That's the question. So some of those prompts, yes. Some of those systems will keep records of them. Not all of them will. So is it something you should be prompting and storing, is the question. Now, if we'd have been talking about this 5 years ago, say, I could probably name on one hand the number of AI-based tools that were out there. Now, there are loads. There are absolutely loads of them. There are some providers that are using them frequently and are very much based upon them. So, for example, some of the ones you've got here, Otter AI, Google, AWS, these sorts of things, yeah, very much so. Then you've got others where they're using an element of it. So one of the ways in which our industry is being affected by this is it actually an AI-based product or service? Or isn't it? In order for us to work out whether or not it's something that we even need to worry about or be concerned about or have questions for, is it actually an AI-based tool or not? So, for example, if we take chatbots, as an example. They can be based on some quite complex agents. Yes, that is true. So I could ask it a question and it could generate an answer. Or it could be very simple. You said the word refund is a standard response for refund. One of those I'm concerned about. The other one, not so much. But finding out what is genuinely an AI-powered tool is a challenge for us. And right now, today, and ask yourself this question, as a data protection, information governance, risk officer, without specialist training, so if you've had specialist training on this, then your answer would be different, obviously. But without specialist training, would you know what to look for? Would you know what questions to ask of an AI-based app provider to find out whether or not what they're doing is actually based on some form in the big umbrella of AI-based models, or not a clue? If your answer to that question is, I wouldn't know where to start, straight away, that is an impact on our industry, because it's an area that we're responsible for, giving advice on use of third-party systems, storage of data and records, and off the bat, well, I've got no idea whether that's based on this or this or this, and I don't even know what questions to ask, because it's new technology, and some of it will be this, some of it will be this. Straight away, we've got a gap in our industry and our profession. So without that sort of specialist training, specialist knowledge, to be able to spot how these things work and what the questions are to ask, straight away, we've got uncertainty, which is not good, not good. And there can be some issues with third parties, not necessarily bad ones, just complexities. Because some of these providers, it's their model, it's their product, it's their learning language model, it's their agent, it's theirs. What we're also starting to see now, to make it even more complex, is some of them are actually based on others. So I may be, hello, I'm Sammons AI, and I've got a clever little funky tool for you. But actually, my tool is based on someone else's model. So in terms of where your data's going, if it's being used to train the model, anything like that where data can move from one place to another, actually it's not their product, it's someone else's. But again, this isn't a new problem either. We've had this with providers and software providers before. Some of them will be theirs, they'll have it in-house and we can manage it. Others, it'll be based on someone else's software code, an open source something or whatever it might be. And we have to do a little digging to get to the bottom of, well, who fixes problems? If I've got a coding issue or a fundamental problem with the system, where do I go? It's not a new problem. But again, would you know that? And in the UK, especially because we don't have the EU AI Act and the government seems a little resistant to put anything like that into place, would a UK-based provider be willing to tell you exactly who it is that maintains their algorithm and their AI models? Potentially not. So there are loads of ones on the market, and I've been dealing with a few with various different things. So there's some examples of some of the most recent ones I've dealt with. An AI-based algorithm in driver-facing dash cams. So you've got the front-facing dash cam, you've got the rear-facing dash cam. It will then analyze the driver and what they're doing to keep an eye on whether or not they're engaging in bad driving practices. What are bad driving practices? That's a question. In your career, have you ever had to get into a discussion around what is an appropriately defined bad driving practice? Well, that was a new interesting discussion that I had with HR. Would that not work with regards to legal basis? Well, yes, Emma, indeed. Other ones we've been looking at include chatbots. So, for example, there's a chatbot that you can, a company that will use this chatbot to attach itself to your LinkedIn account and go and reach out to people So it will contact you on LinkedIn and go, "Hi, Bob, I represent the IRMS. I want you to join, or I want you to do this, I want you to do that, I want you to do the other. This is how we can benefit you, lovely what you do." And then once the sales lead's confirmed, it will then hand it over to a member of staff. Creepy. Ethically, if your first interaction with a customer in order to build a long-lasting relationship and a sales relationship isn't actually a person, it's a bot. It's a little creepy. Business ethics is new. Chatbots standard customer service requests and complaints. Yeah, they've been around for a while. They're not necessarily new. But also, there's another tool I've been getting involved with and doing some due diligence on is an AI-based ID and facial recognition tool. But it's not designed, it's not designed to do facial recognition per se. It's literally here's the copy of your passport you've given me. Here's a photo of you. Is it the same thing? Some of them being offered to verify children. Oh, okay. Well, this is a new area. Not had to look at this before. This is a new one. So it's presenting to the question there some challenges for our level of experience, knowledge, some new ways of using data that we haven't necessarily looked at before. It's presenting some unique areas of challenge under the law as well, especially for some of us that are very heavily, what's the word I like to use? Creatures of statute. Some of those statutes are really quite flexible, some of them are not. And navigating our way around some of those is also a very new skill as well. I agree. The comment there is, I've become used to chatbots. It's very limited. If what you ask does not match what information they use, you can go in a little bit of a journey loop. Yes, you can. Key thing, or talking of key challenges and key bits of skills and knowledge as well, is any of you any good at algebra or equations? Because if you struggled with that at school, you're going to struggle a little bit trying to understand how some of these models work. Because while it's a little bit more advanced than algebra, it's basically math. And if you're poor at maths, and I'm not the best at maths, getting your head around to the comment that's there can be a bit of a challenge as well. So how's your math skills these days? You might have also seen in the news that a law firm tried to ban it. They said, nope, we're going to ban the use of AI. You're not allowed to use it. There was some dressing up by the press on this. It wasn't quite as bad as the press made it up. But we are seeing a few organizations, and indeed one of my clients wanted to ban it. And we have been guilty of that in the past as a profession. The Department of No, we ban things we don't like, or we ban things that present a risk. It has happened. We do fall into that trap. It is a thing. But this is just something that you just can't ban. It's just not possible. Well, tell a lie, it is possible, but it's going to cause you more headaches than it solves. Not easy to ban, to the comment there as well, because Copilot's often built into different things, but also it's just so useful for so many different things. It's just not possible to do. It doesn't work. Therefore, it needs to be a yes with conditions. A look, we want you to use it, or rather you are using it, whether we like it or not. Let's look at how we can use it effectively or use it in a more constructive way. It's almost a yes with conditions. So, for example, they will indeed, the comment there was they find workarounds out of your control. Exactly that. You drive them underground. They find other ways of doing it because they want to do it. So the first top tip I give you, which does go against some of our positions on things, is to not explore banning it because it won't work. Some little isolated bits of banning, yes. So, for example, one of my clients has banned the use of free ChatGPT and free tools. That's an absolute no-no. But if you want to use some of the bought ones, like Copilot, like the business or the isolated instance of OpenAI, that sort of thing, that we can do. because we can control that to some degree. We can lock it down, so we're not putting necessarily proprietary information in it and all the rest of it. And we can put controls in place, especially if we want to generate records, etc. So it's not a absolute, you ain't doing that. It's a, look, the free stuff and the public stuff is just too much of a problem. So let's actually use the ones that we have some degree of control over. And while Copilot presents a problem, it does give you far more control than what OpenAI would. So this is why I kind of like the EU's model, because it's risk-based. To the comment there, it is risk-based. Very much so. So there's been some internal governance challenges and some things that kind of go against our natural inclination when these things come along. But we've definitely got to challenge and look at a better way of doing it. There's also been some strategic developments. So you might have seen the government's change its position on the management of AI. So the AI Safety Institute, as it was known before the Labour government, has now become the AI Security Institute, because apparently security is less aggressive than safety, although I'm not quite sure how that works, but never mind. So now the branch of government that looks after AI has had a rebrand. We also saw the UK government release the AI playbook of different instances and uses of it. There is still, technically, although it is a little bit limbo, an AI governance bill in the House of Lords. If you're asking for a personal opinion, I'm not entirely sure that's going to go anywhere. It might do, given the recent battles with the Data Use and Access Bill and the copyright issues that the Lords then had to drop in order to pass the bill. So it might do. There's definitely some grumbling and some growing concerns there. But is the EU or is the UK going to go down any sort of strategic governance in terms of laws? Hand on my heart, I don't know, is the honest question. Because I can see arguments for why they would, because the UK is falling apart, falling behind, not apart. Well, it might be if you ask some people, but it's definitely falling behind compared to everyone else. But the government kind of doesn't want to be seen to be hampering its ambition to be an AI leader. So who knows? So they are very much falling apart. So one of the other impacts on our industry is that this is becoming a global, not an area of concern, but a global practice. And not that I'm encouraging you to move on from your organizations, because that's, not a legitimate thing to do. But if you ever wanted a global career in AI governance, the issues, or many of the issues, are the same, no matter which market you work in. So it has become an area that opens up opportunities for us as professionals as well. So as you all know, the Data Use and Access Bill was passed. So there's been a couple of big changes to data protection, as well as some other bits and pieces as well. Because do remember, the Data Use and Access Bill doesn't just look at data protection and AI. There are other things it covers off and goes into as well. And don't forget those. Side point, but don't forget them. But it is making some changes. It has almost that, for example, Article 22, it is reversed and made it the other way round, rather than at the moment it being quite restrictive. So it is something that changes afoot. That C word that we often don't like is very much afoot. This is a personal opinion, very much a personal opinion, but I'm with Hal on this. I'm sorry, Dave, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm personally of the opinion that I don't think you can regulate AI through data protection law. I don't think that's a good idea. I think it deals with an area of risk, but there are lots of examples of uses of AI that go nowhere near personal data. And one of the other things that you guys, if AI governance is falling to you, which it may well do in your organization, if AI governance is falling to you, one of the things you will have to do is come out of the data protection world and into the wider information world. Because we can, and we have, and I was guilty of this in large parts of my career, become very personal data focused. but there's lots of examples of uses of AI that's going to have quite a big risk for your organization, goes nowhere near personal data. So, for example, one council, I think it's in the northeast, but I could be wrong, is looking to use AI to assist with building planning and design. Goes nowhere near personal data. But is that going to have quite a profound effect on the council's strategy for building design, urban design, that sort of stuff? Yes, very much so. Is it something then that is, strictly speaking, should come under your governance framework? Yes, very much so. But if all your controls are geared to be personal data related, you're going to miss some big areas of risk that are just going to bypass you completely because they don't go anywhere near personal data. So this is very much a personal opinion, but I'm personally of the opinion that we need something in place, because it's not a tool like 365 was, where you could take existing laws and apply to it. It's something that actually influences so many different areas that it needs its own regulatory, but I know that comes as a very loaded word, but its own set of standards. Don't think data protection does the job. That's my little soapbox moment for our end of soapbox moment. So I mentioned before, one of the big areas that the Data Use and Access Bill edits is Article 22, specifically the rights around automated decision making. And I love the fact that Little Britain kind of predicted this years ago, because the character that they had that were types and things on a keyboard based on what the customer said, didn't go, computer says no, is exactly what automated decision making is. It's a person, employee or customer, patient, whatever, gives you some data, it's run through an algorithm, the staff member does nothing other than run the algorithm and reply back to the customer what the decision was. It's an automated decision. But for a little context, Article 22 only kicks in for these things: legal effects, or something that has a significant effect, a legal effect, or just a significant effect on the individual. So computer says no because you can't buy that banana. Does it have a profound legal or significant effect on you? Perhaps not really. But does the decision whether or not to give you a blue badge? Yes, it does. So not all decisions using AI are going to be triggered in Article 22. And beforehand, so before the DUAB receives its royal assent, so as of right now, because as far as I'm aware, it still hasn't been signed at 1:30 on the 17th of June, there was only 3 ways of doing it. Contract, legally permitted in UK law, consent. That's it. And even then, you had to offer a human intervention, so you couldn't just totally outsource it to AI. There still had to be some human intervention. You had to put appropriate safeguards in place, especially if it related to things like using special category data. And even Article 9, it restricted to using consent or substantial public interests. So it was quite limited and quite structured and quite narrow. Now, the DUAB has changed that and flipped it on its head. It still restricts what you do with special category data, so it hasn't quite watered down that bit, but the other bit now says that you could use automated decision making on individuals without necessarily needing their consent. What it's also done, which I find quite interesting, and I'm not entirely sure I agree with this, it's also said that if you want to you're developing a pilot for this sort of decision making, and you want to use personal data in the test of that pilot and the development of that pilot, it's watered down the requirements for doing a DPIA, and it's also watered down the requirements for getting individuals' consent. So it can be more of an opt-out rather than opt-in, but you still have to tell people that's what you're doing. I don't necessarily agree with that. Because if I'm building a pilot, yeah, their argument is you're not making a decision on someone because it's a pilot. So it's not actually affecting them. You're just testing. It's not making a real decision. Yeah, but the whole point of building it is to then to make the decision. So if the law is saying that you shouldn't do a DPIA until you're ready to move it to the next phase and bring it out of pilot into actual test and deployment, but you only consider the data protection considerations at that point, you've built a system that technically doesn't have data protection built in mind. So what happens if your DPA then says, no, you've got to change that, do that, do that, do that? You're then going to go back to the model and change it again. So personally, I think this is a mess. I think that a lot of organizations are actually going to still carry on doing DPAs in test and whatever else, when strictly speaking, you don't have to. I think that's going to get messy, in my personal opinion. And working with a few organizations that do develop these sorts of things, no, we want to embed as a company privacy by design up front. Yes, legally required, we're required to do it, but now actually we're not legally required to do it. It's just a principle. It's going to present some challenges and some interesting times, definitely. Other challenges, one of the other things to consider, and one of the other ways it's affecting our industry, is it's pulling us into data governance and data management. Because until recently, how many of you got involved in data quality, into the actual raw data side? Not the information side or the structured record side, but the actual data quality, data management, data warehousing, lookup tables, all these things. It has a massive effect on our industry, it has a massive effect on individuals, it has a massive effect on the type of records we're generating. Some of us have been saying for years, data is a big part of records management, but now AI has kind of forced that into the fore, and many of us, where did we, to the comment there, what's your level of experience with data, restricting access to data, data science, data quality standards, these sorts of things? We are going into that world, whether we like it or not. It's happening. So what do we do about that as a profession, as an industry? We are going down that path. Are we now going to be information, data and records managers? IDRM, IRDM, DR, we could be DRIMs, data records and information managers, DRIMs. We've also got issues with legacy stuff. We've also got issues with record keeping. So one of the other issues, as I mentioned before, yes, the records of ChatGPT or other prompts, but also what it outputs. So if it does, for example, respond to the minister and say, yes, minister, you should lay off all of your staff, and the minister goes ahead and does that, there is that record of what that has just produced and told him and done. Is it accessible? Is it authentic? Is it something that we can keep? We were just having a conversation about what you have access to in Teams after an event. Departmental record, dear DROs, would you be departmental data records officers, DDROs? Ooh, departmental data officers, DDOs. Ooh. We'll see what the world brings. Ooh. We're also seeing a number of organizations, especially if your authority it's not a big authority and it doesn't necessarily have a legal team or access to that legal resources. Information governance has, I've noticed a number of IG teams are being asked questions around IP and copyright. Now, some of us have experience working with that, either because you've been brought up in an archive or a records management background, so you've covered that off. But for many people that just do IG and come at it from a traditional DP, FOI point of view, what's your level of understanding and knowledge of intellectual property and copyright? That's proving to be a challenge for our industry as well. A little bit of, well, okay, it pays off to understand that a little bit more as a profession, because while there's no expectations for us to be experts in it, it massively influences some of this. It is a big part of it, as we saw with the argument between the Lords and the Commons about IP protections and what you can reuse those sorts of things for. One of the other issues that's cropping up is also lack of knowledge, but also there is I don't know what you would call this, but a concern amongst staff that we don't want to be seen to not know what we're talking about. Because it's not nice. You go into a room everyone's talking about AI, and you just look at them and go, I've got no idea what any of you just said. So there is a little part of you that does then want to go nod along, go, yes, 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 yes. We had exactly the same with 365, because the technical architecture of 365 can be quite techy, and you can get lost in some definitions. So there's been, I'll freely admit this, there's been some sessions that I've had very early on with IT where I've looked at them and gone, I've got no idea what you just talked about. Cool in any way. Can I have a pretty picture? Can you break that down for me? What? So there is an element of that going on as well. So there are some challenges. It is presenting some problems, but also some opportunities for our industry. And this is where, through gritted teeth, as an AI cynic, actually, there are benefits. Definitely, there are some benefits. And this is where I played around with Copilot. I had a little bit of fun with this. So what I did was I asked it the question. I said, well, if this session's all about how AI can assist with information records management, I asked it the question. So I separated out information governance and I just looked at records management. So I asked Copilot the question, can you tell me how an AI can assist with the records management program? And this was its answer. AI can significantly enhance the records management program by improving efficiency, accuracy, compliance, and accessibility. Here's how. Automated classification and tagging. Well, that's true. That's a very good book, Karen. I recommend. I've read that before. It's very, very good. There's some other book recommendations I'm going to give you a little later on, and some that we cover off on the course. Very, very good. If you want some additional learning, recommend. Automated classification, yes, that presents a good opportunity because at the moment we often rely on staff to do it, and there is some automation. But actually, if an AI program can sit there behind it and go, "Oh, hello, person, I see you're writing a letter. We classify letters as this." It's almost Mr. Clippy on steroids, rather than him just going, "I see that's a letter. Let me format that for you." It's a, "Oh, this is a letter. It's got patient data in it. That's an automatic classification." Lovely jubbly. And there is some elements of that already, right now, today, that exist. So yes, I can see that coming. Yeah. Intelligent data clear up. Yes, I can see that coming. Yes. Compliance and risk management. I'll come back to that. Smart search and retrieval. Yes. There are some products out there now that assist with SARs. That will help find things, but it has limitations because, as you know, searching and retrieving of any record, book, even just a record as part of a SAR requires context. Some things are much easier to find and extract than others. And at the moment, it's that context stuff it can't deal with. So yes, to a degree. Insights and analytics into what people are accessing, when they're going to access it, working out where our controls need to be based on staff behaviours. Yes, because that exists right now in many cybersecurity products. So that's a thing. Yes, I can see that definitely doing it. And workflow automation. Yes, because right now you can do some of that in 365. So yes, I see that coming in as well. So it was okay, all right, AI, yeah, all right, yeah, that's not bad. Can you put that on a slide for me? So this is what it did. It dumped it on a slide for me. Now, could you read that? Is that of any use to you whatsoever? No. So I said, okay, we'll separate it out and put it into a graph so that people can clearly see how these things interact. And that's again what it gave me. Not great. So it was like, okay, all right, we're close, but we're not quite there yet. But it does present some opportunities. Now, while I'm not going to go into the inner workings of Copilot and Purview, I will say this. There are some opportunities in there, again, depending on the license that you've got, because Microsoft love to overcomplicate these things. But there are some opportunities in there to assist us. So as an IG function or an IRM function, I would ask the question to you. Yes, there are risks with it. Yes, there are concerns with it, but they're not insurmountable. You can work your way through them with time, patience, knowledge, and collaborative working, just like it was with 365. Same thing with this. How can AI assist your compliance program? Because it can. There are opportunities there. And I was a naysayer, or I was a raw risk averse of it, but I'm now starting to, or I have come round to the view that actually looking at it with my compliance DPO hat on, it can help me massively. So what therefore can I use in Google? If you've got on a Google environment, on 365, if you're in a 365 environment, what can I use? And there are loads, absolutely loads. However, I also played around with, not 365, Copilot, that's the word. I also played around with 365 to go, well, if it could do all these wonderful things, and there's a potential for it to do all these things with our records and our data, there was a little while ago, someone said, well, sure, it's going to replace us then. And AI is going to get rid of all this. And all right, let's play around with that, shall we? So I asked it the question. Very, very simple thing. Something I've done before because I've worked with charities. I've got a few charities on my books. I've worked with charities before, and it's a piece of work I've done before. So I use it as an example so I could compare it to what I've done to what it generated. So, okay, AI, Copilot, build for me a retention schedule for a small charity that supports vulnerable women with financial support. Now, setting aside the fact that I've gone to the default thing that we all get tarnished with, records managers, we just do retention schedules, that's it. Setting that aside for a minute, I thought I'd go there because it was a first beginning test. It's a relatively easy test to see if it can get the nuances and complexities of a retention schedule. And this is what it gave me. It said, hello, based on UK guidance for charities, here's a retention schedule for a small charity supporting vulnerable women with financial support. So it's pulled out things like support records, safeguarding records, staff records, volunteer records, board meeting and minutes, etc. It dumped it into a format that had what the record type was, the example of what would be in there, the retention period, and the reason. Didn't have the trigger, didn't have the record owner or any of the other fields, but then I didn't ask it for that. But as a bog standard, and this isn't comprehensive, by the way, there is more, but I didn't want to fit it in the entire page. As a starter for 10, okay, that's not bad. It's not brilliant. It has its problems. It's also a little bit what I would call big bucket, for those of you that know that approach when it comes to retention schedules. But as a starting point, all right, this was a little bit more close to the mark than what I was expecting. Okay, all right. So can it assist with the assistance of automation of our own controls? Yes. Can it help with discovery and classification? Yes. Can it help with library management, security management, and other remedial tasks that don't require specialist knowledge? Yes, it can, very much so. So while the business is busy looking at areas where it can help them, I would also pose the question to you. Are there areas where it can help you? Because if you can get your head around how it works, helping you out in your tasks, you can then help get your head around how it helps others out with their tasks as well. So it might be a useful thing to consider and explore. But also then I was on a bit of a roll then. So I went, all right, Copilot, you've reasonably mediocrely impressed me so far. So, all right, let's play around some more then, shall we? What are the data protection issues with an employer using an AI-based dash cam that reviews employees that are driving company vehicles, analysing their driving behaviours to alert for any bad driving behaviours? So coming back to the comment earlier on, what's the lawful basis, blah, 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 blah. This is what it gave me. That's why I didn't want to answer your question earlier on, because I was coming back to it. This is what AI gave me. So in terms of lawful basis, it seems to think, or it suggests, that it's either legitimate interests for the purpose of road safety, protecting company assets, or a legal obligation, but doesn't say which. Obligation against transport regulations, but doesn't say which. Does, however, throw in however, says it must be balanced against the employee's right to privacy A legitimate interest assessment is required. Talks about transparency, so gave some advice around transparency and what you need to tell members of staff. It talked about intrusiveness and proportionality, didn't give any advice, just posed some questions. Talks about data minimization and retention, security, is the data subject's rights or the employee's rights? Is it an automated decision, in which case you need to consider Article 22, talks about third-party vendors, privacy by design. Was there anything else it covered off? No, there were main things, then gave you some links. So it was okay, all right. You've covered a fair amount of the main topics that we would look at. It's still a little bit high level, still a little bit generic, doesn't go into the finer detail, doesn't challenge anything or pose any questions back. But yeah, all right, okay. That was a little bit more comprehensive than what I was expecting. So can AI assist with data protection? The answer is yes. It can assist with data protection controls. It can assist with SAR discovery, can assist with security, can assist with some of our remedial task and management jobs. Will it replace the data protection officer? Can it give specialized advice and support? Right now, my answer would be no, it can't. It's too generic, too high level. It's no better than someone going and having a read and going, oh, okay, well, I would probably need to do privacy by design. All it does is organize it into a structured way. It doesn't actually tailor that advice other than some basic level tailoring, and that's it. So there's a comment there that often people go, oh, AI will sort that out for me. For very nuanced, complex areas, no. Also, no reference to the point there about going to the ICO. Yeah, I'm not going to. Are there benefits to be had from AI for us in records management and information governance? The answer is yes. Although, to close a point, when I asked AI to generate an image of me, of Mr. Bean putting his thumbs up, this is what it came up. So, yeah, it's close, but not quite what we're looking for. Will it ever replace? Will it ever replace the human element? I'm gonna wager it's a no, because there's lots of complex areas, nuances that at the moment, the level of the technology as is, while it is improving and getting better, it's still not there. It still requires a level of knowledge, it still requires input, and there are at the moment just some things you cannot mimic from human beings, which is the person element of what we do. We're not just a series of controls and yes or no's. Information records management is how people work, how they operate, how things occur. Human and context element is a big part of it that it just can't replicate. So there's definitely some things you can do to maximize news. There are also some things you can do to keep up with what's going on. So start with, if you haven't already, having this conversation with your board. Get them talking about it, because there will be some red lines straight away for your organization before we even get to data protection or anything else. There will be some things that legally you just cannot do, or ethically, or strategically you don't want to do. What are they? They will immediately give you a red lines. From those red lines, you can then build a program of governance, which then includes training, awareness, and keeping an eye on what will then affect those red lines in some form or another. So if you haven't already, I would strongly encourage you to have a personal development plan. There are some reading recommendations. So, for example, Artificial Intelligence for Dummies is a very, very good book. It's a very good question. Have you tested AI knowledge management? No, not yet. That might be my next test to play around with. That's a very good question. Because it should be able to be usable for in those different settings. I might have to play around with that. Yeah. So have a look at. I would say so, yes. So the question was, should we write a records management policy in the autumn? Should AI be a specific item in the policy? I would say so, yes, especially if your organisation is going to be using it for various different things and are switching on a number of things. It's an element of, you might have to intertwine it rather than having a specific section on it, but yes, it should be in there in some degree, I'd say. So have your own personal development plan. What skills do you need? The IRMS's skills matrix, sorry, that's a bit of a sales plug because I was involved in the writing of it, but it is good. And there are plans to beef out the AI and data bits even further. What are your math skills like? Do you understand X or Y or Z? Apologies, I've got it till 2, so if you vary 5 minutes. And what other skills do you think you need? A little bit of a sales plug because, you know, why not? Anybody will tell me off if I don't. So there's a AI and ML for IG professionals 1-day course, which is a summary of all the basic points and gives you some key tips and some things to consider to get you going with. We've also, ActNow has also produced a governance practitioner certificate, which is 6 sessions that goes into things into a lot more details. That's worth having a look at as well. And we've also just launched our Information Records Management Practitioner Certificate, which looks at things as well. So have a look at your professional development and what sort of skills do you want to get to be able to look at and maximize those opportunities. But also, there's tons of stuff that various professional bodies are doing as well. So yeah, the IRMS is doing stuff, but also there's some really good templates that have come out of Socratim. There's stuff that's coming out of the AI Standards Hub. Silip are doing some things on this. I have a resource hub. There's loads of stuff out there as well. And if you've not subscribed to various blogs, do so as well, including the ActNow one, because we'll give you updates and best practice and guidance on different things. So it's well worth doing. So there are some challenges, but there are definitely some opportunities. So maximize them. So a little bit of homework for you. 3 things, or a 3-2-1 model that I use with my apprentices. What's your 3 takeaways? Write them down. If you've got at least 2 actions, could be go away and buy a book, could be go away and do some more reading, could be go away and open a bottle of whiskey. What's your 2? And then, do you have a question? Is something that you can either pose to us now, drop on a note, but is there a question that you can either explore yourself or something you would like to pose to the IRMS, myself, whatever? Is there a question for you? The 3-2-1 model. And that is everything. In there you go, Elizabeth. I did it in 57 minutes.
Yeah, I'm definitely impressed with that, Scott. Well done. That's been an absolutely brilliant session. So it looks as though we are getting helpful and well-deserved comments through at the moment, Scott. So I will just start to wind up so everyone can move into their afternoon. So a huge thank you to Scott for doing that session for us. Absolutely brilliant. And we were having the conversation when Scott first started doing these 5 years ago for PSG. We had about 30 people attend, and today we've had nearly 200. So it shows that it's actually coming up, but you hear about things at IRMS Public Sector first. I put a note in the chat about becoming an IRMS member if you're not already, and about our next event. And then it just leaves me to say huge thank you to Scott, and I hope that everyone has a pleasant and productive afternoon, and we will look forward to seeing you at the next event.
Thanks all. And yes, I'll give the slides to Elizabeth.
Thank you.